Welcome back to the Unholier Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Smith. Today's episode is a heavy one, but it's also important. I'm sitting down with Jordan, the host of the Straight Out of BS podcast. He opens up about his experience as a teenager who was placed under the WASP program, which is one of the most controversial branches of the troubled teen industry. He shares what it was like to be sent away, what survival looked like on the inside, and what happened when he came out on the other side. But this conversation doesn't stop at what happened then. We talk about what happens after the program, after the silence, after the "you should be grateful" narrative. Jordan is now using his program to amplify the voices of the TTI community, giving them space to tell their stories in their own words. And that matters. We also touch on something that isn't talked about enough: the ongoing tension and drama within the TTI survivor community itself. Because when you have a group of people who've experienced deep trauma and who were never given the real tools to process it, wounds can collide. There's a stigma around therapy, there's mistrust, and there's unhealed pain. And that's not a judgment, it's just the reality of trauma. This episode is about accountability, healing, advocacy, and what it looks like to build platforms instead of prisons. I hope you enjoy this episode. So let's get started. Hey, Jordan. So just curious, the troubled teen industry is very vast. And I think that for people who haven't experienced the troubled teen industry, haven't been in one of these facilities themselves, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. What do you think that most people misunderstand about the troubled teen industry?
That it's honestly so much bigger than anybody even knows, and it's connected to a lot of different things, and a lot more is happening behind the scenes than we really think is, especially with our children and teenagers and stuff like that. There's a lot, for example, a lot of kids from foster care get sent to these places that we never hear about, that we'll only hear about if they, decide to come out and talk about it later on in their life and tell us, because they're pretty much like the untraceables. They don't have family. They don't have a way that they could be easily identified as having gone through something like that. So that's one example of it. And just also how there's different types of these programs. It's not just troubled teen industry, WASP programs. It's religious programs. It's religious cults. It is a lot of different things, including there's people that from foster care that get sent there. There's wilderness camps. There's all sorts of camps that do the same kind of things, but have different kind of groups that they do it from. Some are religious, some are just part of the troubled teen industry, like I said. And so just how vast it is, for generality, just how vast it is and how connected it is to a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's such a good point. In fact, I know the statistics are pretty high for people who are foster children or adoptees. A lot of the TTI survivors that I've had on the Unholier podcast have been in that space as far as a foster home or adoptee. And like you said, they're the untraceables. They're the kids that maybe nobody would realize if they went missing. I know I have had Barbara Ann on before. I believe you're familiar with Barbara Ann. Barbara Ann went to the Rebecca home, and we've talked to many survivors of the Lester Roloff Enterprises. I mean, that is a very vast network just within the independent fundamental Baptist realm, and the Southern Baptist realm is the Lester Roloff Enterprises. And that is still going strong today, guys. I mean, this is not something that was just in the 50s, 60s, 70s. This is something that is still going on today. And now you have other organizations like the WASP program, where that is a worldwide organization. And I think people need to realize that, like Jordan said, this is a super vast industry. It is $1 trillion industry. And a lot of these kids, they have nobody, they have no parents or family members to advocate for them. And so I love that we're having this conversation because you and I are both advocates for the TTI. And so I don't have experience in the TTI, though I have many friends who were TTI survivors. So I can't speak to that experience, but I know that you are a TTI survivor, so I'd love to get into that. Could you just tell the listeners what age you were when you went into the TTI program and what TTI program you went into, and then also what led to you going?
Okay, so I got trafficked by my own parents to Spring Creek Lodge Academy when I was 16. I just say trafficked because by definition, that's literally what it is. It doesn't matter who was doing the transporting, you were trafficked across state lines. So, when I was 16, like before that, I've always been a problem child as I was put on or at least that's what they would label kids like me, like with ADHD and autism and stuff like that. They're gonna be problem children later on in life. So I was born with ADHD. My parents didn't realize that until I was about like 5 or 6. At that time, they put me on a bunch of different medications. I was pretty much like in like some form of a med trial from the time I was like 5 or 6 till like 10 or whatever. Had a lot of trauma in my life. Well, not a lot of trauma growing up, but I had very specific things that happened that were extremely traumatic for me.
Mm.
Um, that ended up in me lashing, like acting out even more. And so I was kind of a wild child. I'll admit that. Like had a bunch of energy and all that, and so I was hard to handle. And my parents really didn't know what to do with me, and it was hard for them to. And I understand later on, looking back at it, like it was hard. Must have been like really hard to raise a kid like me, especially back in like the '90s, where like there wasn't a lot of information about like I was also born with fetal alcohol effects, like not the syndrome. So there wasn't a lot of information about that. There wasn't a lot of information about ADHD. There wasn't really that much like research at that time. So my parents were kind of trying to do the best with what they knew what to do with, but I ended up acting out anyways. And the whole thing when I got in high school, like, I started, running away and just like, hanging out with friends. It wasn't any like hard drugs or anything. I was just like experimenting with weed, just like honestly being a regular teenager. But I was a little bit different and probably a little bit more out of control than a regular teenager because of my ADHD and whatnot. But they ended up trafficking me when I was 16. And I still remember the night before I went to the program, I'd come home after hanging out with like a friend, like friends for a couple of days. I'd ran away and hang out with friends. And then I just ended up back home. And so I was fucking exhausted and I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning and it's either my mom or my dad was in the room and was like, "Hey, we're gonna get up and get your clothes on. We're gonna go check out the school." And I was like, "Okay, well, are we gonna be back by tomorrow? Because I have to, go back to school because I'd been fucking off a little bit, hanging out with friends and not doing my schoolwork. So I was like, I need to catch up on my schoolwork. So am I gonna be back tomorrow?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, no problem. That's not an issue." And so I remember falling asleep in the car like 3 or 4 separate times and waking up in between in intervals and just being like, "Where are we going?" Because like we were still driving and they're like, they weren't telling me. Then we eventually got there, and when I got there, it was like there was tons of snow. It was in Montana, and it's like out in the middle of nowhere in Montana. Like Thompson Falls is the nearest town, and that's like 30 miles or more from the program I went to. And so we're just
Mhm.
talking out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of the woods, like literally nothing but woods for fucking like miles. And we pull up and it was snowy. And I remember thinking when I first got there, I was like, "Oh, we going to a ski resort?" Like it literally looked like a ski resort. We were pulling in, we like drove up this like long driveway up into the main part of the campus because they had like two parts of the campus. One is like lower, which is like when you reach a certain level or whatever, you go down to lower facility. You get different privileges and stuff. And then upper facility where just like your average student would that hadn't progressed through the program would be up there. So we pulled into there and I remember we got out of the car and we went into like this trailer and then that's where the whole like I got like checked in and I walked in there and they were like essentially they brought me back in the back room and I was in the room with my parents and they were like, "So Jordan, do you know why you're here?" And I was like, "No, not really." I'm like, "I don't know what I'm here." And then they were like, "Well, your parents have brought you here because they're going to expect you to graduate the program or something to that effect." And they were like, "You're going to be here until you graduate." And then of course I was like, started crying and I was like, "Please don't do this to me and don't leave me, Dad. Don't leave me here." And it was really, really hard. I remember like my dad died recently and I know this always weighed heavy on his mind because it was more of like my mom was kind of the one pushing more for this. And my dad was like, kind of just went along with it because marriage and stuff like that. And so my dad told me that that was like the hardest thing he'd ever done in his life was letting me go that day. And so they ended up leaving, and I was there, and that's how I got to the program, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow. So you were 16 and you got out when you were 18.
Right before my 18th birthday. So I got out on December 28th, I believe, of 2008. And I got there on January 23rd, 2007.
Okay. So were you able to communicate with your parents, and were they able to communicate with you while you were there?
Once you were there for a certain period of time, I think it was like 60 days or something like that. And in between that time, you can like write letters, but like you can't just write letters and just be like, oh no, I hate it here and whatever. Like they like go over every single letter, like literally word by word. They're just like some family fathers, the people that ran the family would be more lenient than others and maybe not read every word, maybe read like every 3 words. But in general, you're getting scanned. All your outgoing mail is getting scanned. All your incoming mail is getting scanned. If they don't like what you say, they're going to make you rewrite the letter. If there's any sort of form of manipulation in there, even whether it's fucking obvious or not, even if it like hints towards some form of manipulation, they'll tear it up and make you rewrite it. So yes and no. To answer your question, yeah. But
Yeah, and it's kind of like being in prison. Like,
yeah. Except for you don't get your phone call when you get there. Like you don't get anything.
wow. I
Yeah.
can't imagine feeling like the isolation that you felt. Like, and also the betrayal and the abandonment and all the things that come with that. But you mentioned that you and your dad had a conversation years later before he passed that he regretted doing that.
Well,
So
he told me that pretty soon after I got out of
did
the
he?
program.
Okay.
Yeah, he was always pretty vocal about that, but I was just saying like later on in life, I know that it affected him more because he had Alzheimer's just to lay it out there. Like, and so it always made me sad because they're like closer to when he was like dying or whatever, or died, he would ask me like, hey, Jordan, I just want to know like Spring Creek, like, did it help you or like, did it mess you up? And like, I would always tell him like, Dad, like it was really hard and it sucked, but like, like I learned some stuff. When in reality, it's like, yeah, it really fucked me up, but I'm not about to tell my dad that, like, cause I don't want
Yeah.
him to feel guilty because he didn't even really want me to be there. You know what I mean? So, but
Mm-hmm.
I know it always affected him. He didn't want to let me go that day. He wanted to take me back home with him.
So who was the driving force that made that decision? Was it your mom, or was it like a teacher or a pastor or somebody?
It was just my mom essentially was pressuring my dad. I don't know how much she was pressuring, but from what I understand, she was the one pushing for it the most. She was the one that was researching these programs. She was the one that found Spring Creek Lodge Academy. She was the one that looked at their website, as deceiving as it actually has come out now to be. She bought into it, and my parents were both, brainwashed also. I
Mm-hmm.
want to make that clear. They were both brainwashed, and the brainwashing worked, and that's how I ended up in the program, because they tell your parents stuff like, like, if you don't do this, your kid's going to end up dead. If you don't do this, your kid's going to end up homeless and on the streets on drugs, and you're never going to fucking get your child back. Act now to save your child before it's too
Mm-hmm.
late. They use that kind of fucking language and stuff
Yeah.
like that to draw parents that are desperate in and be like, okay, I'll take out a $30,000 loan, or like I'll put a lien on my house because it's this or my child's going to be dead. So
Mm.
I understand it. I see both sides, but it was more so my mom pushing for it at that time.
Yeah. The false advertising is crazy. Like some of the brochures and stuff that I've seen of some of these facilities is just outright lies. They're not
Mhm.
even real pictures of the place. Like a lot of them, they'll just have like stock photos, and
Yeah.
kids think they're going to like a camp or some cool resort. And it's like, nope. Then they find out it's not like that at all, right? And but then how are you supposed to tell your parent they've sent you away to this place and the parent thinks it's going to be a good, experience for you, and it's quite the opposite. And you can't even tell them until you get out.
Yeah. And the entire time, like your family rep, the person that pretty much maintains contact, like pretty much facilitates contact between you and your parents, and gives your parents like updates about how you're doing and progressing in the program, like behind the scenes, they will be, like painting a certain picture of how things are at the facility, being like, oh, Jordan's like, he's just acting out. Like, he won't stop acting out. And he knows better, but he's just doing it anyways. And so he's been spending a lot of time, like, getting consequence and spending time. And I don't know the kind of language they were using with parents in regards to, like, study hall and isolation. But, yeah, essentially saying, Jordan's acting out. Like, he's not giving into the program. Like, he's just not breaking and stuff like that. So when I ended up talking to my parents or sending them a letter, they're already under the assumption that I've acted out and that I'm bringing this upon myself. You shouldn't feel bad for me. I'm the one bringing this upon myself, when in reality, it's just like, no, I just felt super alone. And like the second I got there, well, not a second, but like very quickly after I got there, I made a fucking mistake and I fucking got caught in a lie because somebody had asked me what my favorite kind of cigarette is. And they said, oh, is it a Camel 69? And I said, oh yeah. And then that's not even a cigarette, obviously. And so they were like, oh, well, if he's going to lie about that, what else is he going to lie about? So I got signaled out by a lot of, because like these families you live in with like 30 or more kids with varying degrees of issues, like people with drug addicts that were addicted to heroin and crack, and people that fucking just like talked back to their parents one day, and their parents shipped them off because of that. And then people with actual like mental disabilities and like people that were violent, people that were in gangs, like all of these kind of people in there. So I got the shitty end of the stick pretty quickly after I got there because I got signaled out or whatever. And like, don't listen to this dude. Everything he says is a lie. If he's going to lie about something trivial like that, what else is he lying about? And so I just felt super alone and just like, so my parents really had no way of knowing what was really happening.
So what was the moment you realized something is not right about this place? Was it right when you got there? Did you realize this was not what you thought it was the moment you got there? Or did it take like a day or two and you're like, okay, I'm screwed?
It pretty much like, I kind of knew like right when after I got like, they did the or they got me into the facility, like when I was in the trailer or whatever. I kind of knew like then, but then like pretty much like when I woke up the next day and I was in there and I was just like, damn, there's fucking bars on the windows and like you can't look outside and like there's magnets on the doors and like you have to like do what they say and you have to, like when you first get there, you don't even know what's going on. So when they start yelling at you to do certain stuff that you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing, and then you get like self-correct, you're not even doing what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, staff corrected. Now you're getting removed from the family. So it was pretty much the first day after I woke up and I was still there and just everything was tripping me out because there was just all these things that weren't normal. Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of behaviors did they label as like problems? Like you're going to get punished for this or that weren't actually an issue, like in real life, like in normal everyday life, that maybe you got punished for?
Spitting, looking out of line, not like when you were in line, for example, you had to stand heel toe and you had to have your head straight, and then you had to like be like an arm's length away from the people. Like when you're walking, you can't be farther or closer than an arm's length away. So they'd be going like gap check, and you'd have to do the gap checks, looking out of line, talking out of turn. Not you had to ask for anything. Like you couldn't get up and go somewhere. Like if you wanted to go to the bathroom, you raise your hand and be like, hey, can I go to the bathroom? Yes, you can go to the bathroom. Like essentially you have to ask for anything, like, just really trivial stuff like spitting, swearing. There was really stupid ones, like just like, like one for like being messy, which could be anything. Like somebody's interpretation of what messy is going to be way different from the next person's. So, oh, your baskets are messy, so self-correct. Just essentially anything that they could consequence you for, they would. And if even like I even got like consequence on some stuff that's like, what consequence are you giving me? And then they couldn't never give me like the 302B, like talking out of line. Or whatever.
So they had codes for like certain consequences, and did you have to memorize the codes?
You didn't have to memorize them, but you would have to. You didn't have to do anything, but like it would be good to like memorize like what rules there are on there. You wouldn't have to necessarily memorize exactly the rule because you could always ask them like if you got consequence when you did your self-correction form. Like I broke a 102B swearing or whatever. And so for every single segment, they used to have these laminated like card things that the upper level students would carry around in staff members, and they would have all the rule violations on them, 1 through 5. So there's 5 categories of rule violations, each one getting worse and worse as you go down. So 5 being the worst, and category 1 just being super trivial, like essentially like everyday things you do, like I spit on the ground or whatever, like self-correct, or being dirty or being like messy or whatever it is. Then so they would have like 104B, 105C, 106D, like all the way
Wow.
down the list. Yeah. Yep.
So did they have like rankings where, because I know a lot of the survivors that I've talked to that were in like a lesser roll-off home, they had rankings where you could gain more control of your situation as you obeyed the rules and didn't get in trouble. And then you then became like, some of them would say like a senior or a sergeant or whatever, where you were able to then punish the other people that were in there and become one of those people and not get punishment. They have anything like that where there was like rankings?
Yeah. Yeah, so our version of that was just points and levels. So they structured these things differently in every single different kind of program there is. So in the WASP programs, most of them anyways, it's points and levels. So you like every day, so say you had like a perfect day, you get like 16 merits. They did merits and demerits. So
Okay.
like on a perfect day, if you didn't break any rule, you fucking did all your schoolwork and all that, like a perfect day, you'd probably get like I think it was like, I can't remember the exact number. It's like somewhere between 16 and 32 points a day. Probably 16 if you were perfect. But if you broke any fucking rule, like 16 points is not a lot of points, especially when considering Cat 1 is like lose 5 points. If it's staff corrected, then you lose 15. Like Cat 2 was like lose like 30 something points. And then 60 or something like that if it's staff corrected. Cat 3 was like 90 points. And then if it's staff corrected, like 180. And then like as you go, like on and on. And then if you got like a Cat 4 or Cat 5, or worse, or bad enough Cat 3, you just lose all your points for the day, and then you act like you just go back down to level 1, 0 points. Because if you get a Cat 4 or Cat 5, it's over. Like any points that you've had, any levels you have back level 1, 0 points, and not only that, you get sent to fucking intervention. You don't just get the Cat 4; they just put you in solitary confinement for that too.
Wow.
And that's like
So
not
was it just like a dark room, or were you able to eat while you were in there? What was that like?
there was bars on the window like all the other places, but it was like, just think of like a little like hut that had like 3 or 4 different like stalls. I think of like bathroom stalls, but they just had these doors on them, and then they'd just throw you in there and it'd be dark, and there would just be pads all over the walls. And because a lot of people would try and harm themselves in there, understandably, because it's really fucking depressing and hard to be in there. But it's just like a padded room. It's pretty much solitary confinement that they have in jail, that we complain about doing to prisoners that have broken the law, but somehow it's okay to do to children. I've never
Wow.
understood that. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long would somebody have to be in there for?
Longest time I was in there was 3 days, but I've heard of people being stuck in there multiple weeks. And yeah, you do get fed. You just get fed like the bare minimum. Like they'll bring you like a slice of bread, a slice of bologna, and a slice of cheese, and some water, and that's pretty much your meal for the day.
Was there a bathroom in there, or did they let you out to go to the bathroom?
They would have these like upper level students that would be what they called roamers, and they would essentially go and take students. Like if you needed to go to the bathroom, they would roam you over to the bathroom and back. And so you'd have to be brought by a staff member to the bathroom. So if they wanted to do it, like some junior staff members and staff members even wouldn't want to do it sometimes. They'd be like, no, you're acting out. What the fuck would I want to do that? Or they'd just be like, I don't like you, so I'm not going to. So like, or just wait. You need to wait. So some people would just end up pissing in there or whatever, because they couldn't hold it. And then you have to sleep in there too.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty messed up.
So was that the ultimate punishment? Like everybody was trying to avoid going to isolation. That was like the highest level of punishment.
Yeah.
Okay.
People wanted to avoid that. Yeah.
What other kinds of punishment did they give the kids?
So there was like something we had called the like log punishment. If like this was more of like a whole family, like if the whole if there was like a lot of people within a family that were breaking the rules or like acting out, then you'd get put on like a log challenge or whatever. So essentially like your family has to like Like I'm talking like an actual log, like an actual entire tree. The entire family of like 30 students or whatever have to carry that log with them everywhere they go. Like everywhere they go. Like if you go
Okay,
to
and so
eat,
when you say family, just to clarify, you're saying like a group of other kids in the program that they've paired you off with.
yeah, so when you first get there, you get put into a certain family. So it was like there for boys, it was like honor, respect, quest, and Genesis. And then the girls was like serenity, passion, integrity, and can't remember the fourth one, but so each family would have like 30 or so students in it. So every week you'd like be tested. You had to do like clean the cabin, and there would be like awards to people who got cleanest cabin. They would get like a movie night or something like that. So every family would be 30 or so students to answer your question. And with the log punishment, you had to carry it everywhere. So when you went to go eat, the entire family had to carry the log. They had to keep it off the ground. You can't drop the log because then the challenge starts all over again. You have to do it for a certain amount of time. So there was consequences like that. There was also study hall, which is essentially just writing sentences. So like say you broke like a cat 3, okay, that's 3,000 sentences. You just time it by 1,000. So whatever rule you broke, you just times it by 1,000. But then if you get it staff corrected, that becomes a factor of like 10. So you do like 1,000 and then times 10, and then you have to do like that many sentences. So it could be like hundreds of thousands of sentences or whatnot, where it's like, I did this, I broke this rule. This is why it's wrong. This is how I'm gonna not do it in the future, and then just write it over and over and over and over and over, and it just never ends. You have to sit in there until you finish that.
Wow.
You still have time on your study hall. You just have to do schoolwork or something.
So you guys did have some kind of curriculum then that you learned from. Are you familiar with what it was? Was it like a PACE program?
We did like we would test ourselves. So we'd read like a textbook for each topic or whatever. And then for every chapter, they would give you like a test or whatever. And you have to do that test, and then you pass that chapter, and then do the next chapter, and then until you finish the entire book. And then you do like a overall quiz on like the entire book. And then that's essentially passing the grade. There weren't any actual like teachers there teaching anything. There would be like a teacher in the room that could answer general questions about like basic math and basic geometry, and like, but wasn't like a fucking like truly educated teacher that had like degrees, or else why are you working at a program?
Right.
You know, like why aren't you working at a school? So they would have a teacher in the room that would be there to answer students' questions, but he's not doing like showing you like this is why, this is what it is, like not explaining things to you. So for me, it was just like I'd do the chapter, but then I wouldn't remember what I fucking read because I have fucking ADHD. So I need to do things like I need to hear it, I need to write it down, and I need to implement it to learn. So for me, it was just like in one ear, out the other. And so nobody really ever learned anything. You could graduate high school there. Like I got 2.5, 3 years worth of school done in like 22 months or something. But so I got a lot of schoolwork in quotations done, and I was fortunate enough for my credits to somewhat transfer when I got out, but for a lot of people, they didn't. So yeah, we had school, but it wasn't computer. It wasn't computer. I know a lot of, especially, like a lot of the religious programs, from what I understand, did like the PACE learning program, or like on the computer or whatever.
Yeah, they did PACEs. A lot of them did like ACE. So they'd get packets. And it's a very similar situation to what you're talking about, where they would have to do the lesson, they'd read, and then they'd take their tests. And then they would actually check it on their own. The teacher wouldn't even check it. It's like, really? How lazy can this teacher be? Like, these teachers are not, I mean, I use that term lightly, teacher. They were just the person in the room that was, making sure everybody was in line and answering questions if they had them. But yeah, it's a very similar situation. I've never interviewed a TTI survivor that had a formal education, a formal high school education. None of them. They are all like similar to what you're saying, which is crazy to me. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but you did get a high school diploma. Was it like a legit diploma, or did you have to take like a GED?
No, so I didn't graduate from Spring Creek. I just got like 2.5 years done worth of school. When I got out of the program, I ended up having to be a fifth year in high school, but I did get my diploma because my credits did, for the most part, transfer into my high school. But then I had like a year and a half worth of high school still left. But I ended up doing 2.5 because a lot of other stuff was going on during that period of my life when I just got out of the program.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you got out. Was it just like when you turned 18 you got out, or you basically graduated out of the program, so to speak?
I
Or
was I
did your
was
parents finally say like, let's bring him home?
I was the very last person to graduate from Spring Creek before they got shut down.
Oh, they got
Me and
shut
one me
down.
me and one other person named Pat, who I hope is doing okay now. I hope he's still alive. But me and him, it was the smallest in the ceremony they do, and it was this is a unique ceremony to like any of the other programs. Like they had a thing called Trail of Lights where like essentially like when you're graduating the program, like there's a whole thing to it. Like you walk around blindfolded for like the entire day leading up to as part of this process. And the whole thing is like to learn to trust yourself and like trust others. And like so they'd be like you'd be blindfolded and you have to navigate the campus. They'd be like, hey, over here, and you'd have to follow their voice and walk to them. And like then you'd also have to do like like you'd have to help other people and give back to other people. So they would have us like cleaning up the cafeteria when people got done eating with the blindfold on. Like the entire time you're blindfolded, you have to clean up, like do all the chores and stuff. So you're pretty much giving back to the facility. That was their thing. And then there was a couple processes in there. Like I had to my parents wrote a letter, and then I wrote a letter. They wrote a letter to me as if I was no longer here, like alive. And then I had
What?
to write a letter to
That
them
is
as if,
so weird.
yeah, and then I had to write a letter to them as if they were no longer there. And so it was like a whole thing. Like you had to read your eulogy, you had to read that shit out loud. And I'm very glad that I had only one person in there with me that had to hear that because it was very personal and emotional. But then at the very end of that ceremony, and this is like probably the best part of the program, like I think, but nobody gets to experience it because very few people even graduated from there. Because who wants to, like who really? Not that I wanted to, but I had to. But still, like they blindfold you, and then you get to choose the song that's playing. Mine was Vitamin C, like as we go on, we remember. Yeah, yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
then they blindfold you, and then you like lean back, and then they crowd surf you all the way down. Like the entire facility comes out for this. Like every single person on the facility is involved in this, and pretty much you stand like facing each other down a line, and then you're at the front of it, and then you lean back blindfolded, and you're like crowd surfed up there while your song's playing, and then you get to the very end, the very last person, they set you down, and then they come over and like kind of give you like a big hug and like whisper in your ear like thanks for all this stuff, thanks for helping me with this, like you really were my role model or whatever. Pretty much it's the last time they get to say goodbye or whatever. So like no other program has that I've been asking around for a process similar to that, but yeah, so I got to participate in that. But yeah, sorry, I'm so like I keep on going off into tangents with stuff.
No, that's
Yeah,
very interesting. I've never heard that before.
very cultish. Here's
Thank you for saying
uh,
that. I didn't want to be offensive. I was
yeah, yeah,
thinking
yeah,
the same thing. I was like, oh, I was like, the whole blindfold thing, and then like the eulogy thing, and then the falling back into the crowd. Like, I can't. I was
yeah,
thinking that, and I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to
yeah.
say it. I'm glad you said
Very
it.
culty, but I'm glad I had the experience. Like that
Yeah,
specific experience was very, very like it warmed my heart. Made me. I was crying by the end of it. I was like a mess at the end of it because I
sure.
I was always like I rebelled for my first like year there, like flat out. I was getting removed every day. Like they knew me by name. Like everybody in the other family would know me by name because they'd be like, "We got a removal. Jordan's acting out again." So I was just acting out, and so by the time when they finally threatened me, because they threw me into isolation, and I think this is important to say, they threw me into isolation, and they pretty much told me like flat out, like you can keep on doing what you're doing right now, but your parents have already signed away their rights, and I just want you to know that we're going to send you to Jamaica if you keep on acting like this. We're going to send you to Tranquility Bay, and if you don't want to act, if you want to act out over there, they'll just break your arm because there's no child protection laws out there, and your parents already signed away their rights. So either do the program or you're going to Jamaica. And so they they threatened me with that, and I knew they'd do it, so I was just like started working my program. I was essentially told myself like, okay, fuck it, I'll just do whatever the fuck they tell me to do. Like I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I have to do to get out of here. And so After that point, I got through all my seminars the first time. I was like, and I'm not saying this to brag or anything. I'm not doing that at all. But I'm just, when I decided like to work my program, I got through, I was only there like an extra 14 months after I started to work the program, which is pretty decent.
Mhm.
But so by the time, so people knew me from acting out, and then people also saw me on the other side when I became a junior staff member. And because I had the unique experience of acting out for that long and then being on the other side of it, I had compassion and empathy, an extraordinary amount of compassion and empathy for people that were on a lower level than me. And so I got known as like, people would know me as like the kind of guy that would, like, if you were having issues during the night, like radio down to like somebody on lower facility, and I will literally wake up out of sleep to come up and talk to you literally in the middle of the night if you're having like a breakdown, which I actually did for a couple different people. There was this one Russian kid named Nikolai, and he always used to get bullied and stuff because of his accent and stuff. And he actually called me one night, and the staff said, "Hey, Nikolai wants to know if you can come up and talk to him." And it was like the wee hours of the morning, and I came up from lower facility. And I don't even think I was told this story yet. I just sat and talked to him and kind of talked him down off a ledge or whatever. So I got known as like that kind of person that really put himself on the line and really cared about other people. Like, I would call people on the rules, but as long as you weren't doing it like to be disrespectful straight up to me, like just to be an asshole, at the end of the day, I'd just come over and be like, "Hey man, you were fucking around, you did this, da 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 da." Be like, "I don't really believe in fucking like setting you back, but like just don't do it again." You know what I'm saying? Or don't do it around me, because I gotta hold my own so I can get out of the program and get back to my parents and my life. So just like make it easy on me and I'll make it easy on you. So there was a lot of people that just respected me and just really missed me. So that's why that whole process at the end was pretty magical for me personally. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's cool that you were able to then help other people while you were still in the program and kind of get them to just go with it, go with the flow, try not to rock the boat. You can get through this, just get through it. Because you've done it. You did it all.
Yeah.
And
Nobody ever saw a person like me that acted out every day for a year ever graduating or getting up in the levels and becoming junior staff. It just wasn't something that people saw that often.
Yeah. Yeah. So at least there's that. I mean, a negative experience that you were able to turn into a positive experience, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. And I definitely want to get into what you're doing now with the podcasting, everything. But I want to know, though, just because I want to sandwich this together. So with your TTI experience, and then what happened after you got out? Like, what was life like after? What kind of struggles did you have? Was it hard to get back into normal life? Did you have a relationship with your parents after you got back?
When I first got out of the program, I kind of just like went back to high school, and I didn't tell anybody about what had happened to me. I told them like, yeah, I got sent to a program, but nobody knew what the fuck I meant by program. No, like, let's be honest, nobody knew
Yeah.
what that meant. And so I said I just got sent to a program, and it was, it was hectic or whatever. And so I kind of just pushed it off, and they're just, I think it was, I just always held on to it and like never told anybody about it. And I had a relationship somewhat with my parents, but it was kind of like non-existent, because after I got out, it was just like, you put me in this place, and I feel like you robbed me of like at least 22 months of my life that I'm never going to get back. You scarred me for life. You abandoned me there. You didn't come and get me. You didn't try and come and pull me. Like, you didn't find, they were being brainwashed and all that, and I get it, but just how I was feeling, like I felt discarded. So why the fuck would I want to be around either of you? Even if my dad didn't want me to, why didn't you come get me then? Why didn't you like fuck what my mom said, come get me, like save me from here. Like he didn't know anything was going on, but still that's how I was feeling. And so I just would constantly be away from home. And during that time I got started on OxyContin. And the very first hit I ever took from I was smoking an OxyContin 80. And the very first hit I ever took, I held it in, and as I was blowing it out, I literally was like, I'm so fucked. I'm so screwed, because this is literally like all I wanted for so long, was just to have, because it wasn't just being high. Like heroin, a lot of people don't understand, like it's literally like a warm blanket over you, like everything's gonna be okay. Like you're okay. Like, you're going to be okay. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, my first hit, it was just like, I got that warm blanket feeling. And I was just like, I don't even need to talk about anything. Like, I'll just, fucking have this feeling as much as I can. And became addicted to, Oxy at first. And then Oxy became too expensive and not available. So then I went to heroin. And then I got onto meth. And then all of that stuff. But it was really hard when I got out. I didn't talk to anybody about what I had been through. It wasn't till like recently in regards to like just like the whole scheme of things in the past like 5, 6 years that I've actually like, holy shit, that place actually like really fucked me up like permanently. Like I'm never gonna be the same from that. Like it changed. Like there was a path that I was probably on before I got sent to the program, and there's like characteristics of myself that I'll never get back. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's just like the confidence in myself, I'll never get that back. The just like outgoing, like now I'm completely introverted. It's completely like shifted, like everything that I was before the program is like not there anymore. And it's just it's really, really fucked up because I'm like that, it's extremely hard to make friends. It's extremely hard to, and because I can't trust people, I don't know what. And that also goes with like I was homeless for fucking over a decade of my life. Like I was addicted to drugs for over a decade. Like the amount of shit I've seen, the amount of shit I've heard, the amount of shit I know firsthand, like it's next to impossible for me to be able to trust somebody until I've known you like a year or more. Like, and even then there's aspects and sides of me that I don't share with anybody. And it's just very hard and feels very suffocating. And so I dealt with that for a long time. And so to answer your question about when I got out, it was just, yeah, I kind of had a relationship with my parents, but I kind of just wanted to be left alone. I wanted to live that amount of time. I lived way longer than that amount of time, just that got taken away from me. But I wanted to just try and get back what was robbed from me. And I searched for that for a long time and did a lot of drugs in search of that. And I'm never going to get it back, but I fucking tried. I tried for a long time to get that back, or at least feel okay and be able to
Mm-hmm.
function.
I give you a lot of props for being able to talk freely about it and openly. And I know that statistically, it is very common for survivors of TTI to have, struggles with drug or alcohol abuse and because they are trying to numb those feelings and those thoughts. And so kudos to you for getting out on the other side of it, for recognizing that is what you were doing, and now you are able to tell your story, and hopefully this will help people that are struggling themselves. But did you have to go to rehab, or how did you break that cycle?
I with a lot of different attempts. Like there was like I think three like main attempts, like actual like serious attempts that I made, or semi-serious. The first one definitely wasn't serious, but it was more pushed on so by my mom. I went to rehab. My mom took me to rehab up in Yakima, and I was just doing it for her that time. I was just doing it for my parents. I felt I just honestly I was sick and tired of everybody nagging me like you need to get clean. So I was just like, okay, fine, I'll go get clean. And then I ended up getting kicked out of that facility actually because I was doing cartwheels down the hallway because they had refused to give me medication when I had a cold. They were like, "Oh no, you can't. You're a fucking addict, so you can't have fucking like the sore throat fucking like syrup or whatever." They're like, "Oh no, you're a fucking addict. You can't have that and all this." And they weren't giving me medication, so I just said, "Fuck it. I'm just gonna act it out and get kicked out of here." So I got kicked out of there. Went back to drugs. Second time I went with my mom again. She she just was like, she just come pick me up. Same kind of thing she did the first time, and then this time she kind of just drove around with me, and we ended up down in California, and I was living in an RV trailer thing with her for a while, and then I ended up stealing some shit, and I got kicked out of there, and ended up homeless in Eureka, California, also known as Eureka, but it's like in Humboldt County, and my mom pretty much like, she said like, I can't risk having you here because you're stealing shit, so like, I can't have you here, because she was like at a boatyard, and I was stealing shit from in the trailer to like go sell to get drugs, so
Mm.
couldn't be there anymore. went to Eureka. I was homeless there. Luckily, or I guess it was lucky because I had a roof over my head, but there was this couple that had AIDS that like, there was this guy walking that was their drug dealer and bumped into me one day when I was homeless down in Eureka, and I ended up staying with them. And then he was a drug dealer, so he always kept me high, and he was also gay or bi or whatever, so he had a crush on me, so he'd always give me free drugs. And that was a um a kind of back and forth friendship or whatever for a while. And I was there, and then I pretty much I was homeless there, and then the dealer got sent to jail, and then I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I was on the streets in Eureka, and it was just really bad. I got robbed a couple times for like everything that I had on me, including my underwear. Like they stripped me for everything and fucking left me out there. Really fucked off situation for that, but that's a story for another time. So I was there. I went into a clean and sober house there for a while, but the entire time clean and sober house, I was just like, okay, cool. So because I'm here, like when I'm here, people are going to be having eyes on me. I'm just going to get up early in the morning, go away from the house, get high, do my drugs, stay away until there's the curfew, and then I just come back, go to sleep, wake up, leave again. So I'm never there for anybody to guess that I'm doing drugs. So that became a cycle. And then when I got kicked out of the clean and sober house, I was at 2 of them, and I got kicked out of both of them when they finally found out, because they will eventually.
Did they do like a drug test on you?
They just one day, it was just a random drug test, but also somebody had snitched me out.
Okay.
And so when I got kicked out of there, I really didn't have anywhere else to go. And I was kind of like in fear for my life down there, because they're just like, Eureka's just not a fucking safe place. It's just really, everybody's on, like, when I say everybody's on meth or some substance, I'm not like, exaggerating. Like, they're on weed and they're on at least one other substance. So you can't trust anybody. Everybody's out to get each other. Like, they'll just like stab, rob, cheat, and steal from anybody. And so I was like, if I'm going to be homeless, I want to at least be homeless in Seattle. So then I came back to Seattle, did drugs for a couple more years. And then this most recent time, I was at the methadone clinic, and it's one of the things that has helped me. But when I first got on methadone, it was just like, so I didn't have withdrawal when I did do dope. It was kind of like a cheat code, but then also the methadone would give you high too when I didn't have dope. So I got on that and was on that for a couple years. And then I like balanced out my dose and started doing that, but I was still on drugs. And then I met this girl in the parking lot of the Office Max this one day, and she kind of changed my life. We were both addicted, but she kind of like helped start giving me hope again, like that I can get out of this and that I'm worth something. And so we kind of, we're still best friends and whatnot. And she kind of helped drag me out of this huge hole that I was in. And we kind of helped each other. And then we both decided, like, it was also when fentanyl was starting to get into everything. Like, we noticed it, like, when we were getting dope, was just like, it would taste chemically. You could literally taste the fentanyl just starting to be put into the heroin. So we were both just like, there's this going on. Like, this is just, it's exhausting. And just like, she's like, you're so much better than that. Like, you should get out of this. And like, I want you to get out. And so like, I just made the choice one day that I actually wanted to get clean. And then it took like several months for me to even get a rehab bed when I actually was pursuing help to get out. Like, it took me several months to even get into a bed. It's like, which is crazy to me. But I got into a bed and I went to Spokane at ABHS, and I was there like 28 days, and I finished the program in like lightning speed time because I'd been in a program already. So the kind of homework they have you do in rehab is very reminiscent, especially in this place. It's like, what kind of trauma did you have growing up? How did you deal with it? Tell your life story, that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, okay, this shit? Okay, I'm going to nail this out in like fucking like 3 days. And so I just told him, give me the entire stack of paperwork and homework that I need to do for the entire program. And I just had that shit done with like less than a week, and I got out of there. Because going to rehab, it wasn't that I needed that, because I was just at a point where I was exhausted and I finally wanted it for myself. But my mom was like, if you want my help to, because she was like, if you go through rehab and do that, I will personally make sure that you get into an apartment. I will keep you housed until you get into an apartment. I will help you pay the first few months rent. I will fucking help you furnish your house with like the basic stuff you need. And I will support you. But if you don't go to rehab, then I'm not going to take the gamble that you're actually ready to get clean, which I probably would have done the same thing knowing my track record. And so she did that, and I went to rehab, and I finished it, and I got out, and she helped me get into an apartment and all that. And then I got on my housing program, and it's kind of where I'm at now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would be maybe some advice that you would give somebody who might be struggling on drugs right now, who maybe they relapsed, they got off at one point once they got out of the TTI program, and they just feel like they just can't break the habit, or they're thinking about going back on drugs, they're missing the high? What advice would you give to somebody who's listening like that?
First is, and very most important is, if you're going to be doing any sort of drugs these days, you need to fucking test your drugs. Like flat out, like there's no, if you want to live and do, like, I'm not encouraging anybody to do drugs, but I'm saying if you are doing drugs right now and you are not testing your drugs for fentanyl before you're doing them, you really should start if you want to stay alive. Second of all, you need to find something that is going to give you hope for the future. I don't know what that is going to be different for every single person. For me, it was a chance encounter with a girl that I met, and she just like brought a lot of love and happiness and light into my life and helped me, kind of realize that. Like for anybody that might be like a social worker that goes out and talks to homeless people, find out what they're passionate about and help them find hope that maybe they can do that in the future, like something that they like. Did they like music? Like try and get them their mind off of other stuff than just like, I need to get high right now. Like I need to get money right now. And I know that's a hard cycle to break, but you need to somehow get these people to get some hope within themselves for the future. I feel like that's one of the best ways, because that's how I did it. And I've tried a lot of different other ways of getting clean. You have to convince these people there's hope for the future. Because if they don't feel like there's hope for the future, why the fuck does anything matter? Why does it matter? Like it's not going to matter. It didn't matter to me. Find something. And I know it's just, there's not much that can really be done from just like your own, unless you come to some realization like, hey, maybe there is hope for the future. I feel like it kind of sometimes has to be somebody coming to you and being like, I see you. I'm on the same level as you. Like, let me try and speak some kind of like sense into the situation. You know what I mean? So why I feel like it's so important for people going out and talking to homeless people and like helping them get housing and whatnot. That's all important, but I feel like people need to be educated in like how to do that. Like you have to come to their level, and like you can't like be coming off as like I'm better than you or any of that. Like it has to come from a neutral standpoint, and you have to get through to the person somehow. Like the person has to be gotten through, like, because when you're in addiction, that's all you see. Like you don't see anything else. You have literal blinders on. That's literally all you see. There has to be a distraction in that. And sometimes some people say like going to jail does it for them. But I would argue that unless you're getting like, you're learning coping skills and stuff like that, when you get out and you're presented with temptation again, when you're not in a fucking big box, in jail, are you going to make the same decision, or are you going to just like fall back to your addiction? So there has to be some sort of, I don't want to say intervention, but just somebody has to, I feel like it's easier for two people to do this than one person. I'll just say that. But if you're doing it yourself, you just got to be ready. Honestly, like people hate to hear it. People really hate to hear this, but honestly, you just have to be ready. They have to be ready to get clean. Like there's nothing people can say, do, or anything like that that is going to 100% definitively get people sober. There's no place you can put them where it's going to force sobriety, unless you're like physically forcing sobriety. Like if you're in a hospital setting, like a 5150, or you're in a fucking jail setting where it's forced, where you don't have an option. But yeah, people don't want to hear it, but you have to be ready. I'm just going to say it, like brutal honesty. You got to be ready, and you got to take the steps to get clean. And just realize that there's more to life than just like getting high every day and like numbing everything out.
I love that you said give them hope for something in the future. Give them, and even too, like I was thinking about maybe helping them realize what they're passionate about, something that they enjoy doing, something that they can put work into. Like I just had a guy on the podcast, Jeremy Pascal, who was raised in a religious cult. And he went through a really traumatic time as a kid in this cult, and now he's doing these huge murals on buildings. Like, he goes all over the United States and paints murals. He found passion in art, and so he's able to use that as almost like a therapy, as a healing mechanism for himself. And so I think that is a really good piece of advice that you said, like, give them hope for the future, and also maybe find something you're passionate about. So within that, I would love to talk about what you are doing now, because I know you're very passionate about helping other survivors and mainly helping people in the TTI survivor space. And you have your podcast, Straight Out of BS podcast. Let's talk about that. How did you end up getting into podcasting?
So when I got clean, like this last final time, I was just starting to like delve, just like asking myself real questions and kind of just like kind of realizing. And then also, this was before the program came out, but I just like was online on Facebook one day, and it's just like, can't remember exactly what it was, but something got my mind on like what happened to me. Like, I wonder if there's like podcasts that, oh yeah, I remember what it was. I was watching videos because like, that was a big thing. It still is a big thing. And I do every single day is I go on YouTube and I watch a fuck ton of videos and just gain a fuck ton of knowledge and shit. And so I was just like on there randomly one day, and I just like came across a video like Spring Creek Lodge Academy. And I think it was like Jenna Belis or whatever. And on another interview, she went to the same school as I did. And so I watched that, and like, then the gears started turning, and I was just like, okay. And I like started looking up, and I was like, okay, there's like different podcasts for like specific schools, but where's the podcast for like all
Okay.
schools, including the religion, like everything in one place? And then I was like, why don't I just do that? Why don't I just fucking, I came up with the idea. I was like, and if I don't do it, then somebody else is fucking gonna do it. Somebody else is gonna do it, and then I'm gonna be pissed that I didn't do it. So I was just like, I just started it that day, and I was just like, opened it up, and I fucking, essentially, I was just like, if you've been to any TGI school, religious school, wilderness program, cult, you've ever been abused in your life, like I've expanded to addiction and recovery since then, and abuse, but it just started off with like any kind of these programs, or any sort of like involuntary hold, like where you were forced to be somewhere, come share your story. And then people started wanting to share their story, and I've been pretty much doing that ever since. I wanted to just like be, I saw what the other podcasts were doing, and that's awesome, but I feel like I personally felt like it would be more impactful in my own experience if there was, if people started to see that it wasn't just the TTI and WASP, it wasn't just the religious programs over here, it wasn't just the wilderness programs that are like separated. These are all connected, and to see it all in like one portfolio and be like, look at my channel and be like, oh shit, there's people from fucking like Baptist schools, there's people from wilderness programs, there's people that were in foster care and fucking got pipelined into the system too. Like, they went to like 32 different foster homes. Like, there's like all these different, WASP programs and TTI and anything you can name under the sun. And just seeing that, I felt like it would be more eye-opening for people than just having the focus be on, this is the program I went to, and this is all the people that went to the program. Because while that was cool, and while I interviewed a fuck ton of people from Spring Creek Lodge Academy when I first started the podcast, because that was like, I'm going to start here. Like, that's where I'm going to be the, the meat on the bone there is going to be interviewing people that I went to school with, because there's a lot of there's a lot of conversation that can happen there, especially with people that I went there with personally. So I started doing that, and it's kind of evolved like a little bit bigger than I even imagined it would go. I didn't really think I would get, like, I know 1,000 subscribers isn't a lot, like compared to like somebody that has 1,000,000 subscribers, but if you put 1,000 people in a room like right now, that's enough people to make me leave, because I'm too anxious. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of people. Like, so it's just kind of grown, and now I'm just like, now I kind of feel like obligated to do it now, especially with like, I find out and I hear crazy shit, not crazy shit, but just like it's completely logical stuff, but just just mind-blowing stuff that now I'm just like, I feel obligated to do this. And I've also had a few people, don't really want to get into this too much because of whatnot, but I've had a few people in very prestigious positions, I'll just say in another country, involved in politics. I'm not even going to go into that, but I'm just like, that have asked me to stop doing what I'm doing on multiple different occasions, and have not given me a reason as to why to stop what I'm doing. to stop making videos, they flat out asked me to stop making videos. And then, yeah, so that's happened a few times. So because of stuff like that, also, now I want to double down even more because, like, what about what I'm doing is really, because if you're hearing about it and you're telling me to stop, then that means it is getting to you, which means that this is bigger than I think it is, you know?
It's, yeah.
So, so yeah, essentially just like a big fuck you, like, respectfully, but I'm not going to stop what I'm doing, and what I believe is right to, for anybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's way bigger than any of us even know, for sure. When you started your podcast, was it more like healing for you or was it more triggering for you? Because I know sometimes hearing other people's stories can sometimes bring up things that maybe, even for me, with my podcast, it will sometimes bring up things that I thought I was okay about. And then it'll be like, oh my gosh, I need a minute.
Yeah, like at first it was like probably more triggering than it is now. Now I like when I hear stuff that I haven't heard before. Not because it happened, but I'm that there's new information still coming out about these places and like new things that like, because then I can connect more dots. You know what I mean? Because in my head it's like a huge like poster board and there's like all these fucking connecting dots to different things, and like so it's easier for me to piece that together. But it's sometimes triggering for me, but I also like that because when it's triggering for me, then I can go and examine that within myself and be like, what was I feeling back then? And try and pinpoint it, because a lot of this stuff I've blacked out. A lot of this stuff I don't like remember. Like I remember the gist of it, but there's like certain things that happen that like I somehow managed to black out of my mind until somebody brings it up, and then I'm like, oh my fucking God, like no, that was me. No, I did. And then the wheels start turning. And I remember. So yeah, it's triggering, but at the same time, it's helpful to heal, I guess you could say,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, totally a good point. I love that you're able to say like, why is this triggering me? What is it bringing up in me? I'm remembering something that I forgot. Yeah, that's a good point. Now, do you ever see, or what patterns do you see when you talk to survivors on your podcast? Do you ever see like patterns that like almost everyone's experienced this particular thing? Or even after the program, what is something that a lot of these survivors struggle with that you often hear them talk about?
I know one thing is there's a big fear about their story being like people saying you're lying or whatever or making it up.
Okay.
There's a huge fear among a lot of survivors that have reached out personally to me. Like they're okay with doing an interview, but they want to ask beforehand, like, like are people going to be, bad mouthing me or like coming after me for sharing my story or like being disrespectful? And I always tell them, not on my channel, because I free speech and all that. But at the same time, if I'm having somebody on the podcast that is sharing a vulnerable side of themselves, it's not your priority to sit there and be like nitpick and be like, oh no, this is true and this is not true, or I think this is not true, or she's lying or whatever. Like the point of the podcast is for them to tell their story in a fucking safe, unfiltered way and not get fucking attacked for it, and not get fucking called crazy, and not get called like, like essentially deal with all the other shit they have to deal with on the majority of the interweb, with people having opinions about, and it's fine, have opinions, but you don't need to attack my guests because of what you believe. Like that, yeah, free speech and all that. But on my channel, like, I will flat out not accept the comment coming through if they're being like, oh yeah, you're fucking, she's full of shit, because that's not helping anything. Like,
Right.
even if they are, what the fuck is that helping? It's just gonna because then everybody that watches the video is gonna disregard everything they say, and they're not gonna listen to anything else they say. So that's a big fear. What could you expand on, like, what you mean by like patterns?
Like what's something that is like similar across the board with things that maybe they struggle with after they get out of the
Oh,
program?
okay.
Yeah.
Trusting others. Just making friends, keeping friends, explaining to people what they went through, if like they're explaining it to somebody. I think those are the main ones that I
Mhm.
would say, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever had anyone come on your podcast that told your story and then later you found out that it was false?
No, no, I haven't had anybody.
Oh, that's good.
I've had people claim a bunch of shit, but
Yeah,
nobody ever comes with any receipts. And even if they did come with receipts, once again, it's not my. I'm not fucking jury, judge, and execution over here. Like
sure.
it's not my prerogative to sit over here and be like, oh, this person's full of shit, and I'm gonna take their video off my channel. Like if they, you know, and they know if they're lying, they know. So like, I don't need to go after them, but like I have had people say a bunch of shit about a few different episodes, but nothing that I was able to like actually like verify. And
Mhm.
I don't think I'd like really go out of my way to try and verify something like that because it's just not.
Yeah.
I could care less if it's true or not. You know. You
Mhm.
know, like I honestly hope it's not true, to be completely honest, because then they didn't suffer that trauma. But
Yeah.
for almost everybody, you know, I don't really, unless you're clout chasing, and like even then it's just like my channel's not that big, you know, like what, how much clout are you really going to get from lying on my podcast, you know?
Mhm.
But
Well, and that's the thing. I asked you because my channel isn't specifically geared towards TTI. I interview people who are survivors of cults and religious trauma and the troubled teen industry.
yeah.
And I've had my podcast for more coming up to a year in a couple weeks. And I've had quite a few TTI survivors on my podcast. And there was one in particular, I'm not going to name any names, but he came on and then I was contacted by several of the guys that went to the same TTI program as him, and they were all like, he's lying, he's embellishing. And he has a platform on social media where he just pushes his story out constantly and tries to get money from people. So when you talk about like the clout and all of that is something that he is doing. And so I, as somebody who isn't from the TTI but has become friends with a lot of people from the TTI and interviewed a lot of people from the TTI, I feel like there is a little bit of almost like a competition, I guess you would
Oh yeah.
say, with
Yeah.
some of them. Like my story is worse than your story,
Oh
and
yeah.
my program was worse than it's like it's all sucked, okay? It's all like everybody's experience has sucked. And so this whole like tit for tat thing, I just didn't know if you had experienced it within your podcast at
Oh
all.
yeah. When you break it
Okay.
down to that level, yeah, I've experienced that a lot. And honestly, you want to know the truth? That's how we were programmed to act in these programs.
Mm,
Like we
okay.
were literally programmed to attack each other and tear each other down and be like, "Oh no, you're not this, you're not that. Like you're this, you're that. Like you're not going to
Yeah.
succeed because of this." Like it's always just that was how you like progressed in the program. You had to tear each other
Hmm.
down, and you had to like punch holes in other people so that you could step over them. And so that's how we were like programmed to act. So it happens a lot. Now that you break it down to the kind of comparing, like, yeah,
Hmm.
I've noticed that a lot. And you're right. It doesn't fucking matter because honestly, at the very end of the day, everything is subjective.
Hmm.
Something that was earth shattering to me could be a slap on the wrist to you. Okay.
Hmm.
Something that's earth shattering to you and vice versa. So comparing does nothing. It actually takes away from the value of the conversation because when you start doing that, then people stop focusing on the actual trauma and stuff that has happened to people, and they start being like, "Oh well, is he telling the truth though? Is he
Right.
embellishing? Is he like, is any of this even true?" And I've had a couple of survivors, you know, also come on and just be like, "Oh," and also the survivor community is in a way, it's a little bit culty in a little way. Like there's a little bit like, but it's you have to understand that it's left over from how we were programmed. The majority of us,
Sure. The trauma and
yeah,
stuff that
and
you guys
a
experienced.
lot
Yep.
of us never outgrew that kind of way that you act and tearing each other down and stuff like that. And there's, you know, I'm not going to say any names, but there's been like some drama between some survivors that have tried to get me involved. And every single time it's just like, I'll show receipts and also I'm staying neutral. So don't try and do that with me. Like,
Hmm.
but, you know, it's just like, and I'm also not going to take a side. Like if you want me to be like, oh, I'm on team so-and-so, or I'm on team so-and-so. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not in
Mm-hmm.
high school. This isn't a popularity contest. I could give a fuck less if you like me or you like me or if you both hate me. I'm still going to do my podcast. And it's just, I feel like it takes away from the actual conversation that needs to be had about these
Mm-hmm.
places, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of good that could be done when we were just, and I think some of it might be by design too. Maybe they programmed us like this because they knew later in life we were never going to be able to come close enough together to actually like make a fucking difference because we're too busy
Mm-hmm.
bickering at each other and fucking arguing and, you're this, you're that. Like, there's so much tension that we can never actually fully focus on the issue at hand, which is ending child abuse, ending child trafficking,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely 100% agree with you. I think that if it can remain neutral and not this competitive back and forth and focus not on the drama and focus on what is actually going on and what has happened within the TTI and continues to happen in the TTI, major changes can happen and it for the good, for the better. So, why do you think the troubled teen industry is still operating in plain sight today?
Mm, I have a couple different theories, but end of the day, it's just money and power. But I also think that some of these people that run these places actually 1,000% believe the bullshit that they spew. Like they actually believe that this is actually helping people. Like
Mhm.
I don't think that's a very big percentage, but there are some people running these programs that actually think they're doing good and they're actually that delusional. And
Yeah,
there's
like they're
also
brainwashed.
yeah, there's also a percentage that just like to prey on fucking children and teenagers and fucking exploit parents and families and rip apart families. And I think there's also probably a bigger agenda behind the scenes for these programs that people don't really talk about as well, that I'm not really too privy on what that could be. But when it comes down to like money and power and like stuff like that, I think that's really the heart of it. But also just like I think that it's just an easy loophole to then, if you think about it too, it's an easy, once you get a child there, you could, especially if they come from foster care, if that child goes missing, who's going to come looking for them? Like if
Mm.
anything happens to that child, like I said
Mhm.
when we first started, like they're the untraceables. Like, so it's a very easy position to exploit a child if you get a child into one of these programs. So I think there's a lot of fucking perverts and I think there's a lot of bad actors behind the scenes that might be even orchestrating some of this to get access to children. I don't really, I don't have any definitive lines comparing that, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of these people that run the programs too that are perverts, that just want to be
Mhm.
around children. They want to be around teenagers and stuff like that. And because they're easily manipulatable or whatever it is. And I also know that there's a lot of staff members that have tried to have and have actually had prior students, say, look after their children after the program. What does that remind you of? Like cult behavior. Like,
Wow.
so it's just like, I think there's probably a lot of different reasons it's going on, but I think at the very heart of it, it's money and power.
Mhm. Who do you think benefits the most from these programs existing?
Probably like nowadays, probably the government. Because
Yeah.
now the government is like, especially if you're in foster care, they'll subsidize you going to this place now. The government will pay for that shit. So because
Mhm.
they're paying for that shit, like they're getting kickbacks. They're getting all sorts of money back. And the more kids they have in these programs, the more kickbacks they're gonna get. So it's just like these people are greedy, they're fucking power hungry, and a lot of them are fucking perverts. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say that. And I think that nowadays the government, I think back in the day, like when I went through the program, probably like smaller towns that were in on the whole thing, because you look at the majority of these places, these programs, especially in the WASP and the TTI, and well, I think this could be said as a generality as well, are outside of very small towns or towns that they can easily gain influence over all of the town, including the sheriff's department,
Mhm.
the schools, the fucking fire department. Everybody's in on it.
Yep.
Everybody's getting kickbacks in some way, shape, or form. So I think before it was like smaller towns, but nowadays I think it's the government probably.
Yeah, it is crazy how a lot of them do, like you said, when you went to Montana, you were really isolated in the setting that it was in. It was like 30 miles away from any town. And I hear that a lot from people in these programs because it's like they can't even run. If they tried to run, I mean, they would be days on their own, like running in the woods or in a swamp or whatever. And then it's like, good luck trying to survive in that too. It's kind of like that's the point. But then when you do get into a town, a lot of them, there have been survivors I've had on that have actually made it into the town. And like you said, they're all in cahoots. Like the store owner or the gas station attendant or the cops, they're all in cahoots with the program. Like they will bring you back. They just will. They all know about it.
Imagine running away and you get to the police department and the policeman just looks at you and says, yeah, you're going right back too.
Yeah. Right.
Like the person that's supposed to be protecting you, like that you should be able to fucking rely on, you know?
Exactly. So what do you want survivors to know at this point if they're still early on in their healing?
Take it slow and be patient with yourself. And if watching like the videos on my channel or the videos on Unholy or any other podcast is triggering you to a point where it's starting to affect your life, ixnay on it, you know? Slow down. Like you don't need to watch all this stuff at once. You don't need to process all this at once. What happened to us was systematically done to us over sometimes years of time, where every day we were implemented into this system and conditioned to act a certain way, programmed to act a certain way. So don't expect yourself to be able to break all these patterns when the brainwashing, like these programs work because the brainwashing works so well. Like it really works, and that's why the parents are brainwashed. That's why the kids are brainwashed. That's why a lot of survivors also never even realized that it was abuse that happened to them because the brainwashing worked perfectly. And just realize that if you're even slightly realizing that this was fucking abuse, this was trafficking, this was whatever happened to you in there, and calling it like it is, then you're already doing more than the like 90% or more of survivors out there of these places or of abuse in general. Like in general, you know, survivors of abuse don't generally talk about it, like statistically. So if just be patient with yourself and just give yourself kudos that you're even able to wake up a little bit, because some people never do, and some people will never wake up, and they might never realize that, and it's just crazy because it's just like the person that, if the brainwash, that's why I'm always interested, like, to interview people where they think it's like the best thing that ever happened to them, because it's like, but what kind of, it turned you into this kind of person, you know what I mean? It's not like, I don't think you would have been the same person if you hadn't gone to the program, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So did the brainwashing really make you a better person? Not saying it made you a bad person, but do you really feel like it made you better? Or do you feel like you're just kind of surviving? You know what I mean?
Is there any resources that you would recommend to survivors who are listening to this episode where they could reach out to somebody who would understand what they're going through?
Well, I mean, you can always reach out to me. Hopefully I don't get like I'll always talk to somebody, but I hope I don't get like 50 million messages after this. But you can always reach out to me. I'm always available. But just realize that if you call me, I'm probably not going to pick up because I have anxiety about talking on the phone. So if you want to reach out to me, just throw me a message, like shoot me a message. And then if you want to talk, I'll just like, if it's really urgent, I'll talk to you like there on the spot. But usually I actually, and this might sound stupid, but I literally schedule phone calls with people. Like I have to be like literally ready to talk to fucking people.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get that. Yeah. And I know, I mean, other organizations like I would highly recommend would be Survivors Unrestrained.
Yep.
Tabitha, I've had her on the podcast. That is a really good resource for TTI survivors. But I just didn't know if you were like part of a Facebook group or anything like a support group that's online that people could reach out to. But you're saying like if they wanted to reach out to you, they could.
Yeah. I mean, there's Straight Outta BS Podcast has a group on Facebook. It's just Straight Outta BS Podcast group.
Okay.
And there's like 480 something survivors in there. So, I mean, if you're struggling, you can always reach out through there. I mean, Unsilence is good. You know, like there's a bunch of different, if you just look up like Troubled Teen industry survivor on Facebook, there will be a bunch of different groups. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I'd do that. Yep. And then, of course, you reach out to you or anybody like that, Tabitha. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Before we wrap this up, Jordan, is there anything else that you would like to say to the listeners today?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Yeah.
Covered it. Yeah.
This was great, honestly. Thank you for doing this with me. I want to thank Jordan from the Straight Out of BS podcast for joining me today. And I hope that you heard what I heard in this conversation. Pain, yes, and also responsibility, growth, and a willingness to have hard conversations. The Trumbull teen industry doesn't end when somebody turns 18. The ripple effects show up in adulthood and relationships and careers and even inside the survivor communities. And here's something we can hold with compassion. When people haven't had access to therapy, when there's a stigma around mental health, when survival mode becomes your personality, conflict can feel safer than vulnerability. Healing is messy. Community is messy. Trauma recovery is messy. But platforms like Jordan's and spaces like this one are proof that survivors are reclaiming their narratives. If this episode resonated with you, please like and share it with somebody who may enjoy it as well. The more we amplify survivor voices, the harder it becomes for these systems to operate in silence. If you're a survivor listening right now, you are not alone and you are not broken. Seeking help is not weakness, therapy is not betrayal, and healing is not selling out. It's power. Thank you for listening. Before we close out, I just want to share a quick reminder. The stories told on this podcast are personal experiences and perspectives. They're shared to create awareness and connection, not as medical, legal, or mental health advice. Some of the conversations here focus on abuse, trauma, and other heavy topics, so please take care of yourself while listening. It's always okay to pause, skip an episode, or step away if you need to. And if anything we talked about brings something up to you, we encourage you to reach out to a trusted professional or a support resource. You don't have to carry any of this alone. Thank you for listening.